Hello everyone. Right, it's actually Saturday today, so I'm filming this video in two halves. So you'll actually see it Sunday once I actually put it up onto the site. Um, because Sunday morning I do my weigh-ins, so I haven't done that yet, so I can't give you an update on how I'm doing. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's too well, but anyway, we'll get to that tomorrow, or later on for you guys. Um, for this part, for the first part anyway, I want to go over some real basic information. I've been asked on quite a number of occasions now how right on my early videos, I explained that I did 2.5 for a few weeks, and then I moved up to 3.75, and I did a dose and a half for a couple of injections, and then I moved up to the 5. Now, the reason I did that, purely personal. When I first started to take Mounjaro, I did what everybody out there is doing. I watched loads of videos, I had Facebook groups, and I was hearing all the horror stories of how the side effects really kicked in from going from 2.5 to 5. So I started to look for alternatives basically. Um, and I'd honestly, I was petrified. Previous to this, I was on metformin, and metformin absolute did a number on my GI. I'm not going to go into details, but I had the worst ever side effects possible, and they just got worse. And it got to the point that I was miserable. Um, it was causing me some real problems, hence why I had to come off it in the end. But I'd put up with it for so long. But I had really, really severe diarrhea. But it was multiple times a day and really painful. So again, not gonna TMI. But the horror stories that I heard from people that had gone from the 2.5 and then had gone up to the 5, it really did scare me. So, but I also really wanted to try the Mounjaro. I didn't want to not do it. So I started to look for alternatives. So my alternative was to sort of mid-dose, as I call it. There's loads of different names. People call it short dosing, mid-dosing, split dosing. There's loads of different scenarios out there. So ever since then, I've been asked how. So I thought what I would do today is I'm going to give some really basic information. So some of you will get this, others won't. And pre-warning, I'm going to go into the maths. So if you don't like maths, by all means, flick forward. My update will be at the end and carry on do that. But I'm going to give some maths. And I do think this is important because you need to understand how the pens work and how the dosings work, so that you can make a decision if you decide that you want to change your dosing. Now, as I said, from day one, I'm not a medical profession. This is not medical advice. This is what I decided to do and that I found has worked for me. And it has worked for other people. There's lots of people doing this. So I will link some websites as well below of some other content providers that have been going over the dosing as well. It works for some, and I get it. Some people are absolutely, no, it's a prescribed medication. I'm going to take it as prescribed, end of, which is totally fine as well. If that works for you, that works for you. I've also seen providers that I've also seen people that are on it that have said that from day one, and then later down the line, they've changed their minds because they've seen the benefit of changing it slightly. So all I'd say is keep an open mind. This isn't the be all and end all. It's just advice based on what I found and what works for me. So by all means, this is not medical advice. I'm not medically trained. And I'll caveat with that with I'm not a mathematician either. So bear with me on the maths. I have tried to simplify it as much as I possibly can. I understand it, but I also understand that some people are absolutely horrified with maths and have got no interest whatsoever of learning it. So I get it. Okay, so the basics. So you start off with your pen. In fact, I'm going to go and get my pen. 2 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Right, I knew I wouldn't be prepared for this. Okay, so my pen. This now is a 7.5. So let's see if we can pick that up, if we can get it to focus. Come on, focus. No, it's not going to focus. Okay, right, so 7.5. The dose inside now, I've got one more to do on this one. So, but when it's full, it holds 4 official doses, and we all know it holds a 5th. So each dose is 0.6 millilitres. Okay, so I'm trying to work out a way of explaining this, but each dose is 0.6. Okay, so you turn it 60 times all the way around till it gets to the number 1, and then that will deliver 0.6 mils. Okay, and if you use an insulin syringe, which I will show when I do the 5th dose one, then you draw off 60 units. An insulin syringe it's actually a 1 mil syringe, and so 60 is 0.6, which is exactly what this delivers. So if you just think of the number 6, that's the way to think of it, because you've got 0.6 in a dose, you've then got 60 clicks, 60, and if you're looking at an insulin syringe, it's 60 units. So most of them are split into, I think you can get them that are split into 10 units, so it'll be 6. So always think of the number 6. That will help amazingly. Okay, so each pen, as you know, you buy your strength. So your first dose will be 2.5. So 0.6 will give you 2.5, 60 clicks, or 6 or 60 on your insulin syringe will give you 6. So see where we're going here. Right, so if you decided that you didn't want to go up to the 5, there's a couple of ways around that you can manipulate those doses to get it to the dose that you want. Now the analogy that I used, and this worked on my son, so I'm hoping it's working with you guys, is each pen has a strength, okay, but each dose is always 0.6. So if you're on a 2.5 pen, the dose is 0.6. If you're on a 5 ml pen, the dose is 0.6. It's just stronger medication within the dose. The pen itself has a concentration of the medication, and it's in a carrier liquid. Now that liquid, I don't know what's in these Mounjaro pens, but in general it tends to be things like saline or a sterile water, and then the medication is mixed in it. So it's a bit like a cup of tea. So if you took a cup of tea and decided to put a sugar in it, so 1 sugar is your 2.5 milligrams, and you stir it around, and that 2.5 will disperse through the whole of your cup of tea. If you then decide to put another spoonful in, so you put 2 in, so that's your 5 milligrams. So you're doubling your amount of sugar, doubling your amount of Mounjaro. Stir it around, and then you've got 5 milligrams that are dispersed throughout the whole of the cup of tea. If you only drink half of your cup of tea, you're only consuming half the amount of sugar, 2.5. So that's the way I look at the pens. So your 5 milligram pen, same volume for the injection, but double the strength. So if you wanted to take a 2.5 from a 5-point pen, you'd take half of it. So going back to the clicks, 60 clicks for a full dose, 30 clicks is a half dose, or 3 or 30 units on your insulin syringe. So you do the maths around the number 6. That's the way I'm logically trying to explain it. It can get a little bit more tricky as you go up, and depending on the dose that you want. I am going to pop some charts up in the corner. You just Google the charts, they're all over the place. There's so many different forms. So basically, you look for the strength of pen that you've got, and then the actual dose that you want, and then where the two lines meet, that's your number of clicks. But like I said, for most insulin pens, insulin needles, that's the numbers that you would draw up to as well, which is really handy to know. So I chose that I wanted to go from 2.5 to 3.75, which is basically a dose and a half. So I had the 5ml pen, but I just didn't feel comfortable taking the 5 at the time. So I worked out that dose and a half would be 2/3. Is it 2/3? No, 3/4 of a dose. So a 2.5 would be 30 clicks, and then half of that again, which was another 15, takes me up to the 45 clicks. So that's how I worked it. I did 45 clicks on that 5 pen, and so it gave me a dose of 3.75. Now I did that for 3 weeks, I believe, just to get used to it. I then had another 5 pens, so I then started on the 5 after that and continued. I had no side effects. I don't know whether that's because I titrated up slowly, or that if I'd have gone up to the 5, it would have worked anyway. Who knows? I just don't know is the answer, but that's the way I chose to do it. I did the same when I went from the 5 up to the 7.5. Almost accidentally, because I was determined I was staying on the 5. I didn't have any problems with that. And I was on the second injection of my, I want to say my 3rd or 4th pen. I can't remember which one now. But I was halfway through the pen, and I was about to get my next one. And the suppression was not working so much. I was beginning to get more side effects. Though I decided at that point, because I had enough in that syringe, I would titrate up to 6.25. So again, I took a full dose of 5, which was 60, and then I took another quarter of a dose. Yeah, that's right, quarter of a dose, so another 15 clicks. So I actually injected twice for those next couple of weeks. So I took the full turn all the way up, took that 0.6, injected that, so that was 5, and then I took 15 clicks, which gave me an extra 1.25, which took me up to 6.25. And I did that for a couple of weeks until that pen was finished. I then had a 7.5, and then I moved on to the 7.5. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense to people. Like I said, this isn't by any means a how-to. It's just putting a little bit of maths behind how you can titrate differently. Now, there's lots and lots of different ways of titrating. I think a lot of people are talking about split doses at the moment. So doing 30 clicks at the beginning of the week, and then about halfway through the week doing another 30 clicks. They're only taking that, whatever dose they're on, they're taking that, but they're splitting it across the week. I personally don't believe that would work because of the half-life of the injection. Now, if the last lot of maths is blown your mind, or you didn't keep up with it, or you're just really not interested in the maths, then a half-life is really going to blow your mind. But I am going to explain the half-life, because I think, again, it's something that helps people to understand why, and then they can make a decision. Once you've got the why, you make your own decision. Right, for those of you that don't know or don't understand it, Mounjaro medication has a half-life of 5 days. Now, a half-life means that the medication disperses by 50% after 5 days. So when you take your first jab of 2.5, now bear with me because I have written this down so that I don't get it wrong, because it is complicated. Half-life is not easy. Initially the principle is easy, but as you'll see, it's accumulative, let's say. So you take your injection on day 1, and you take the 2.5, as we all do. We start on the 2.5. Then after 5 days, that has naturally lost its potency by half. So in your system on day 5 or 6, you've only got 1.25 left in your system. So naturally, you may feel a little hungry. You might get a little bit of food noise back. And you have this for a couple of days. And then on day 7, you will then take your next jab. So you've already got 1.25 in your system still. So on day 7, you'll take another 2.5. So accumulatively, you've now got 3.75 in your system. So everyone goes, yes, suppression kicked straight back in again. I felt it was working. You've actually got a little bit more in your system now. But this is where half-life gets tricky. You have to separate the doses in your head, because that first dose, which is now 1.25, is added with your second dose, giving you the accumulative 3.75. But day 10, that first dose is going to half again. And this is why a half-life, it doesn't that it never disappears, but every 5 days it halves. So day 10, your 3.75 has now gone down to 3.12. And this is because that first dose has halved again. So that's gone down now to 0.62. So accumulative again. So those first few, I mean, you most likely wouldn't even notice that sort of difference. It is quite a small drop. Plus you've got your second dose on board, so that's going fine. But then day 12, your second dose will halve. And this is where I hear people saying, it was really weird. I had the suppression went, or I had a sudden hunger on a random day, on a Tuesday. And it's because your half-lives are beginning to add up. So you get to day 12 and that second dose is going to halve. So now you've got, I've actually done the maths, you've got 1.87 in your system. And this will kick in. Until you get to day 14, you take your next dose again, and then that will bump it up. Now, I am not going to go any more into the maths. It's not necessary. But again, I love an analogy. So let's throw an analogy in there, shall we? I like saying it as well because I can. It's a bit like a snowball. So if you think of rolling a snowball in the grass, and it's slowly getting bigger. But as it's getting bigger, bits are dropping off as well, because, it doesn't all hold together in one go. So it's slowly going to grow. But as you're going along, every now and then you might lose a chunk. And that's exactly what half-life does. It just slowly snowballs and bits will fall off as you go along. Now, that's, for me, every single time I get hungry, I look at the half-life. I look where I am in the week. Am I on day 5? Have I just taken a sudden drop? And don't forget, once you're up at, let's say, 10 milligrams, if you're taking 10s, your half-life is going to suddenly drop you by 5. That's got a massive drop, considering how high a dose you're used to. So, keeping that in mind, there is an app. You do not have to do the maths. I use an app called Shotsy. I'm going to throw some screenshots up. The app itself, you input what date you put your jab in. There's 2 seconds. I'm going to just grab my screenshot for it. Okay, so I'm going to pop my Shotsy app, and I've done a bit of a screen recording for you. Okay, so the app works if it starts. Okay, so on the front page, it shows what shot I've taken. So in this case, 21. I'm on the 7.5 milligram dose. An estimated level in my system at the moment is 9.92. And I've got 6 days left before my next shot. You add your shots in. So every day there's a diary setting that I'll show you in a second. So you can see I did X amount on 2.5, then I did 3.75, then I moved up to the 5. And it calculates your half life for you at each shot. So you don't have to do the maths. That front page will tell you estimated roughly how much is in your system at any one time. So if you get a random day that you're hungry, you can go to this and then just say, oh, okay, my levels are a bit lower today because I'm doing my shot whenever it is. There's loads of functions on here. Like I said in my last video about journaling, you've got a section in here that you can add information regarding your shot. So you go to the calendar, select a date, and it will allow you to record things like your weight, the calories, your protein, if you wanted to track those. And it also gives you a section to identify whether or not you had any pain. You can make some notes on it. So you can just keep a record of how you felt. And then you've got something to go back to. So I find this really useful. I put my weight in here occasionally if I did have side effects. I'm fortunate, I don't tend to have side effects. And then that all will then pull through onto the front page again, onto the calendars, and you can see at a glance any notes. It then gives you a nice little graph as to where you are with your weight, if you're tracking your weight, how much you're losing, how much you've changed, how much percentage of your goal you've got to, and roughly how much you're losing each week. So mine's averaging out at 1.1. And I've got 7.4 to go at the point of doing this recording. I've set my target at 140 on this one, but that will change once I get to it. I like to have £10 targets so that I've got something to aim towards. Okay, back to the front page, and it just gives you a good old summary. Now, this is the free version. This isn't paid for, and by the way, they've not paid me for it, so this is not sponsored by any means. It's just an app that I found and I find really helpful, and it just lets me know roughly at any one time how much is in my system. And in this case, 9.92. I think I recorded this a couple of days ago, so it's most likely a bit lower than this now. So I'm hoping that might help some people. I think understanding the half-life and how the drug actually works in your system can help you to understand that hunger. Now, for some people, me included, I'm quite happy to have that hunger, have that lack of suppression for a couple of days. It reminds me that I will have to work out how to eat properly at some point. So I like it. Others don't, and I totally understand why. And at this point, I am going to just point you to Gordon's video, who is Fat Old Climber. I'll pop his details in as well. He's decided to take his jab every 5 days because of the half-life. So he goes into real detail of how he's doing it, how he's worked it out. It can be more expensive because ultimately you're not going to get 5 doses out of a pen. So, or 4 if you're not taking the 5th dose. So you really do need to utilise the 5th dose, and also and again, Gordon goes into it, explains how you do it from a larger dose pen. So it's a bit more complicated. But it's worth knowing that there's a possibility out there. So I personally think that that's most likely more effective than splitting the dose on that 3 days and then taking it another 3 days later, or 4 days. You do you, but what I wanted to do was put some maths behind the reasons why these happen, what can be beneficial for you, and how comfortable you are with doing that. And what I don't want people to be doing is saying, oh, well, so-and-so is doing it every 5 days, so I'm going to do it every 5 days. You have to understand why. And you need to make an informed decision as to why you've decided to take it every 5 days, not just because somebody random on the internet is doing it. You have to understand why, and understand the half-life, because although it does half every 5 days, it's also accumulative. So you are having more in your system. But what it does stop is those peaks and troughs. So instead of it dropping drastically, it doesn't drop so much. At the moment, I'm not there to be doing it 5 days. Will I in the future? Quite possibly. I don't know yet. I'm still happy to have a couple of days of hunger or less suppression. It just reminds me that at some point, especially once I get round to maintenance, I'm going to have to learn and remind myself to eat properly, and not for me not to have the drug completely take over and stop me from eating. So each to their own. So I hope you found this slightly informative, not too confusing, and maybe even entertaining in some way if you're a bit of a bath geek like me. But hopefully it hasn't flummoxed anybody. But if you have got any questions, by all means ask them. I'm happy to go over anything that anybody wants. But what I don't want to be doing, and I've been asked, is, oh, how many clicks do I need to do this? What I want you to do is understand the maths and work it out for yourself. But like I said, there are plenty of charts out there that gives it you as well. So, right, I'm going to leave it there for now. But I'm going to be back in a couple of seconds, which for me will be tomorrow morning. And I'll give you an update of how I've gone this week with my weigh-ins and my dose. So I'll catch you in a second. Cheers. And just like that, it's Sunday. So I hope I haven't absolutely bamboozled everybody with figures and maths and bits and pieces, and I hope some of that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. I just think, like I said, it's education, isn't it? It's, if you understand things a little bit better, you can make better decisions. Or that's the way I live anyway. You know, I have to do more research. I have to look at why things happen and have some reason behind it. So I can't just blindly follow things. It's got me in trouble because I ask questions all the time. Somebody asks me to do something, I want to go, why? I want to know what's the reasoning behind it. It's not that I'm not going to do it, just give me a reason. So I don't follow rules very well in that sense. But anyway, right, that's over and done with. But like I said, if anybody has any questions, by all means, pop them in the comments and I will get back to you. Right, change the subject slightly. I just wanted to touch on basically last week's video. I don't know what I managed to do, but I've had some really, really good response from last week's. It's done so much better than any of my other videos. It just took off for some reason. And I'm really grateful. Hopefully, whatever it was in there, 'cause it was my 20-week update. So, and if you haven't seen it yet, by all means, just pop back one video. It's 20-week update. It gave you an overall of where I am now, where I started when I started Mounjaro, and a little bit of my journey prior to Mounjaro, because like I said, I've been on a weight loss journey in one way or another for like the last 4.5, nearly 5 years, since I was diagnosed diabetic. So it's a combination of a lot of things. So actually on Mounjaro, I've only lost just over 20 pounds in just over 20 weeks, which is fine. You know, I'm at the latter end of the weight that I have to lose. I don't still have the big 4 or 5 stone to lose like some have. So therefore my weight loss is going to be just much slower. It's that trickle bit at the end. But in some sense it's more difficult when you can see that number ticking down every week, you know, by at least 1-2 pounds. That in itself is motivating. I have to find other ways to motivate myself now, and last week's video has really motivated me. It's the response that I've had from it anyway. So I'm really grateful. So all of the new subscribers that are on board with me, thank you so much. And if you're watching this, or you've just found me, or you've followed on from last week's vlog, and you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It will really help me in the long run to get these videos out. So I do appreciate every single subscriber. Right, okay, I'm going to round it up. So my weigh-in this morning, I did allude yesterday to me not thinking it was going to be so good, but this morning it's ticked down finally. So I weighed in this morning at 146 pounds 0.6. So total loss from last week of 0.8. However, I had a slight tick up last week, 0.4. So all in all, over the 2 weeks, I'm another 0.4 down, which is fine. It's nearly £0.5. And what it does do is it finally ticks me over that 10.5 stone. So I'm now 10.6. Yeah, 10 stone 6. My brain is not working this morning. 10 stone 6.6 pounds. That's it. So it just ticks me under the 10.5. I would like to be down at 10. That was my goal for when I go on holiday. I have 7 weeks left to go. Realistically, I now know that I'm not going to lose £7 in 7 weeks. Back a few months ago, I would have been able to do that. If I can do £0.5 each week, that's fine. That's all I can ask for now. I can't lower my calories anymore because I'm only 5'1". I'm on very little calories anyway. It's funny actually because I was watching a video on another YouTuber that says, should short people work out differently, that type of thing. And it just makes sense because we have so little calorie need. So, my maintenance calories are 1600 calories. It's nothing. Some of you guys are eating more than that with 1,000 deficit. I can't do 1,000 deficit. It would take me into hundreds of calories as opposed to into the thousands. I can only work with a 2, 3, maybe 400 deficit. So it is what it is. It's always going to be slower. But admittedly, I sit there watching people losing 2, 3 pounds, and I'm like, I wish I could, but I can't. I've got to work with the numbers that work for me. Like I said, my maintenance calories at the moment is, I need to rework it actually, but it's most likely about 1,500, and that's just maintenance. So none of this 2,000, 2,500, which most people can do for maintenance, I can't. So it limits what I can eat, and it limits how much of a deficit I can be in healthily. So last week my exercise was a bit pants. I didn't get back to the gym last week. I'd done really well the week before, gone 3 times, and then last week nothing, absolutely nothing. So that's my goal for this week, is to get myself back into the gym at least twice. If I can do 3, brilliant, but at least twice. So I think that's going to be at least Monday and maybe next Saturday. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. So yeah, that's my week done. Like I said, a small loss, but a loss is a loss. I'm ticking down towards that 140, which if I reach for my holiday, brilliant. If I don't, I don't. All my holiday clothes fit. I did myself a bit of a try on yesterday, so all my holiday clothes fit. I'm comfortable. I've got a couple of swimsuits that fit. So it's almost like, I could do with staying as I am for now. I don't want to lose another half a stone and then suddenly have to go out and buy something, but we'll see. So again, I'm going to leave you there. I'll pop all the figures up in kilos and let you know where I am. And I shall see you again next Sunday, which will be my 22nd weigh-in. I'm still on the 7.5 pen. I've got 1 more dose left out of that, and then I go into the golden dose. So the following week I will do a little bit of a how-to on the taking the 5th dose. So if anyone's interested in that, so it won't be next week's one, it will be the week after, because that's when I'll be actually taking it myself. So I'll do that with the insulin syringe, and I'll do a walkthrough of actually how I do it. Right, so on that note, I'm going to leave you to it. I will catch you all in the comments. So like I said, just please, if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing, because it will really help out my channel. And I shall see you all next week. Right, bye for now. Bye.